We made it. And our newest member of the loose conglomeration of people I do this show with is, so far at least, the only one here. I think people will be trickling in slowly but surely as we go along. This is an odd week because other than Army Navy and the FCS playoffs, Division II playoffs, there's not a whole lot else going on. I think Division III also. I think Division III also as well. Yeah, they are still going on. But sadly, or uncomfortably, or whatever term we use, another position, another one of the biggest spots on the chessboard of college football coaching jobs has reopened, or not reopened, has opened because of Sherrone Moore. And first of all, I just want to say, I've not known. I mean, I've known of Sherrone Moore for quite some time. We talked back and forth a little bit when the Black Coaches Coalition first got together, and he was probably 27, 28 at the most at the time. And I believe was the tight ends coach at Bowling Green State. And we talked a little bit. We follow each other on Twitter/X. So it's not like we're friends or whatever, but we've spoken a few times. And I've let him know, that I'm very impressed. And I still think he'll get another chance somewhere, though. Obviously, the most important thing is to deal with what's going on with his personal life and his family. And especially with the level of severity of some of the things that happened, my fervent hope and prayer is that everyone involved gets the help that they need. Obviously, the biggest victims here are the children. And, he has 3 beautiful daughters. And my heart, I'm a girl dad myself. My heart right now is broken for them particularly. And we'll have to revisit this on a football side at some point during the show. But I just wanted to get that out as a black man, a father, an ex-husband, which I think he's about to be as well. I certainly can understand at least some of the things he'll be dealing with, but not in the public eye. Like, the worst day of my life didn't happen with tens of millions of other people commenting on it. So I can't really imagine that part of what he's going through. But what I'm going to do is move on to football stuff. Football itself is enough to keep me busy, so I can go back to talking about the thing that people actually want to hear me talk about. The FCS playoffs have already had an exciting development, and what better timing? If you say the words FCS playoffs, he magically appears. I love that.
That's the only way. That's the only way to get me to appear on places. Just you got to say FCS playoffs 3 times.
Oh my God. Well, I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm not going to mess around. I'm not going to pussyfoot. The Redbirds, shout out to my friends. I have several friends, including my former coworker, Jalen Love, who was a walk-on at one point at Illinois State. So Illinois State, a tough program, a top-tier program, but never thought of as a championship contender, right? They're always thought of as that sort of bridesmaid. Hey, they might win a game. Heck, they might get really spicy, win 2 games, and then, leave with a parting gift. Well, not this year, right? The old meme about somebody call an ambulance, but not for me. Illinois State is still going. Talk me and walk me through that game, and then tell me, am I getting too excited? Or can the Redbirds do more damage?
Yeah, I mean, what a game, right?
Yes.
Usually going into the Fargo Dome and throwing 5 interceptions means you lose by 40, and it's a death sentence. And somehow, man, like they went in through 5 interceptions, but played remarkable defense. Like outside of NDSU's first play, I think they averaged like 2.2 yards per play. One of their only other scoring drives was they had a punt return, and then they also had a touchdown in the red zone that was set up by an interception return, and then they had a pick 6 on the other scoring opportunity. So like NDSU's offense was terrible. They boxed Cole Payton in, they got pressure on them. The defense played exceptionally well, and man, shout out to Brock Spack for putting trust in Rittenhouse. He throws 5 picks. Man, you know who's ball? You know who we're going to put the ball in his hands to win the game. We're going to put it in Rittenhouse hands because we trust his senior quarterback to go make a play. And I love the call there at the end of the game. He scored the touchdown. You can kick a field goal to tie or go to overtime, or you can go for 2 and use that momentum. And I love that he trusted his quarterback. He went for 2 there, and they called an outstanding play, man. And what a performance from Illinois State, because I don't think anyone in the country, including Illinois State, thought that was going to happen. If you would have told them they were going to throw 5 picks before the game, they would have went ahead and packed it in.
Yeah.
The
Eagles attempted the Illinois State Redbird Challenge. They couldn't quite pull it off. It was one of the wildest games of football. I mean, like, I've been watching football a long time, Zach, and I've struggled. If you told me they had 3 interceptions and it was still close, I'd be like, way to go, Redbirds, like, to keep it competitive. People like to say things like, this game is drunk, this game is high, this game is whatever. This game is delusional, is what I was remember thinking. Like, there's nothing about this game makes sense to me. And double shout out, as you said, to Brock's back, to Rittenhouse, to the deep. My God, I'm convinced at least 3 or 4 of those guys are going to collect NFL game checks. We'll talk about them, I guess, in a second. That is one of the best defensive performances I've seen this year. Any level of football, you don't have to say like what level, like name a level. That's one of the best performances, because that NDSU offense can score. They're not like, light up the scoreboard normally, but they can score on anybody when they need to. Like, they score as much as they need, right? It's that person can run as fast as they need to run. If they need to score 40, they score 40. If they score 50, they score 50. But they usually just, are satisfied with the upper 20s to the mid 30s, because that's usually all they need, because their defense is pretty good too. So that brings me to question 2. Is this like a lightning in a bottle situation, or can they keep going?
I mean, they'll have a chance. I don't think, after watching the way they played against this North Dakota State offense, I don't think anyone should count them out, right? Because I don't even think they played a great game this past weekend, and I don't even think they played great in the first round. That's what's crazy is, going into last week, me and everyone who was previewing the game was like, they need to play much better than they did round 1. They played worse offensively and somehow found a way to knock off North Dakota State. So maybe they just need to continue what they're doing. Maybe I just don't know enough football, but I mean, you look at this team, man, they lost by 30 in the last week of the regular season. Southern Illinois demolished them. They beat a really good Southeastern Louisiana team, beat a really good North Dakota State team. I don't think you can count them out of anything. Now, did I pick against them this week? Yeah, I did. But I also think Caden Pinnock and this UC Davis offense is really, really good. And I think if you give this offense 5 extra opportunities like you did North Dakota State, I don't think they're going to miss on them.
My thing with it is too, is like, North Dakota State has been so dominant like over time. And it's literally like, this was an opportunity to just like punch somebody. Like, straight up just be like, you're throwing all these picks, like, god awful, like, what are you doing? And it's almost like this was like a chink in the armor to me of like what North Dakota State has been over like these years of like college football. Because it's like, when you actually look at the game itself, it's like the biggest thing that like stuck out to me is like, man, they had that win percentage like in lock that whole time, and they just fucking blew it at the end. And to me, it's like, man, like, just ignore blowing it at the end. And it's like, to me, it's like that's a standout win for Illinois State, because it's not even just about like everything else. It's just like, you literally straight up blew them out of the water. Like, at the end of the game, like, that's a big moment for you. Like, big players make big moments. And like, in Illinois State's game, you're making a big moment. It's like, the fact that I'm looking up, like, one of the things that blows my mind is like, you look up Illinois State right now, like, you look it over any search media, you're gonna find their basketball team before you're gonna find this game. And that's the craziest thing in the world to me. That's the craziest thing in the world to me.
Well, I mean, they've been a good. You mentioned Southern Illinois, and of course, Doug Collins being, if you're talking about the right Southern Illinois, being their most famous basketball player to come out of there. But they've been a good basketball program forever, forever. Their football team, sometimes good, sometimes meh.
Yeah.
But this version of their football team is new to me. Like like Zach pointed out, I thought they needed to play the game of their lives to make that game even, like, fun to watch. They played. It reminds me, once again, I keep going back to like sort of, analogies from other things. People who are big fans of Jackie Chan know that he's been in several films where they feature a form called Juji Kwan, which people who don't study martial arts would know as drunken style. And literally, you spend the whole time like kind of wandering and reeling and looking in the wrong direction, and it's confusing to someone who's used to a conventional attack, right? On offense, that literally seemed to be drunken style. There were times when, and Rittenhouse is a good player. Like, I don't want to make it sound like he's a player that I don't have a high regard for, but he definitely was having maybe the worst game of his career, right? I mean, that's the thing I'm still struggling with. And as you said, when all the chips got pushed to the center of the table, Brock Spack says, I'm betting it all on you.
Well,
First of all, when people say run through a brick wall, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, you would jump on a grenade for that guy, right? I mean, what wouldn't you do for that guy who says, after you've had the worst game probably of your entire athletic career, go win it? I have complete faith in you.
Well, and it's so funny that you brought up a brick wall because it's like similar to me and like a different mindset. It's like when you watch Illinois State, it's like you'll see them in this moment, and it's like they should not be back to backs. Like the fact they're back to back, like 10-win seasons, like that's crazy. Like the first season, whatever, you're like, okay, it's a fluke, it's whatever. But now you're like, they're running it through. Like they're going through, like they're actually well coached. They're actually like, no, this wasn't just a mirage. It wasn't just something in a mirror that you saw. It's like this is who they are. And it's like, wow. And like Illinois State is starting to put it together to a point where like they're gonna get at least a coach, like you could get an FBS job. Like you get out here. I don't think it's gonna be anywhere crazy, but like you get somewhere.
Well, I mean, as we just pointed out with the whole Sherrone Moore thing, it's always kind of this, effect, like, because somebody has to move up from here and they're going to pull somebody off of that staff. And I think Brock Spack is probably going to stay for a little while longer because he's put a lot of work into this.
He's been there forever.
For those that aren't familiar, he coaches people hard. For those that don't know Brock Spack's coaching style, tough love is a cliche. I don't want to say that, but it's like it's love that is deeply marinated in your face accountability, I think is how I put it.
Well, and that's the exact reason what you're saying right now, Bill. It's like he's not gonna get any of these top end jobs. Like those top end jobs, a lot of those recruits aren't gonna take like that kind of accountability, like any of that stuff. But towards like the minor jobs that he can take, like towards getting something in like other college coaching positions, he's got a good shot, man. Like I don't know why you wouldn't turn him down. Like back to back 10-win seasons, like you gotta do something at some point.
Yeah.
Well, he also, this isn't even the best 2-year stretch that he's had at Illinois State. He went to the
100%.
national championship in 2014 as well. Like he's been the head coach there since 2009. He might just be one of these guys that are just cool with where he's at. In 2009, Brand, I was like in middle school. So, he's been at Illinois State since I was 12. And so I think he might just be okay with being where he's at. Because both those years that he made those runs in 14 and 15, he won the Missouri Valley over North Dakota State.
Yep.
And they ended up losing to North Dakota State in that national championship. So he's made a ton of runs to the quarters. And so we'll see if he makes another run of the Natty, maybe we could see something. But like it's one of these things where he's had these 2 or 3 year stretches of really good runs, but then it goes back to those like 6 and 5s, 7 and 4s, and kind of falls.
So like what you just brought up is so funny to me because like I was also around that time frame. I think it was 11-10 at that time, somewhere in that time frame. But it's like I was a kid from Spokane, Washington, so like I was a little kid, didn't really understand anything. It was like Eastern, North Dakota State, and Illinois State, and like Illinois State was like a matter of like did they hit the right high or did they hit the low? And that's kind of where you were at. Like everything was coming down to like what we saw back then. And it's like that I feel like people talk about that era of college football just because it's not like real. Like I'm not gonna say not real college football because like obviously big college football, we all care about it. We're talking about it right now. But it's like compared to that, it wasn't like hyped up like with all these other schools. But like that was a time frame, man. Like Eastern Washington, North Dakota State, like those schools were big. Those schools were like at a time period where it's like they were like fighting each other.
Right. Delaware also made an appearance around that time. Yeah, it was a really fun time. It was a fun time in the FCS world. here's, and we'll move on from Illinois State to the rest of the field in a second. I have to. I'm saying to myself, half saying that I can't believe that they can't. It would be hard to believe they wouldn't play better on offense the next time. Like whoever it is, I'm going to just, not the boldest of predictions, but I predict they don't have another 5 interception game. So that's my bold prediction is they will not do that again. And so by virtue of being better on offense, but they're about to. Well, I guess we can do it. I guess we're about to launch into a full-on preview of the next game. Walk us through that. And we can then expand out to the rest of the playoff field to this point going forward. My sort of 2 implied questions are obviously who slides into that spot that normally your brain would go to NDSU having, and then the other sort of implied question is who's the team we're not talking about enough, obviously other than Illinois State, that has a chance to win this whole thing. But yeah, walk us through the matchups.
Yeah, I think the obvious 2 favorites now become Montana and Montana State. And funny enough, they're on the same side of the bracket for the first time. And so we might get another Brawl the Wild rematch next week. But I think both those fan bases, as much as they've been near the top of the FCS, Montana State hasn't won it since 1984. And Montana hasn't won a national title since, I believe, 01. And Bobby Hauck is 0-4 in national championship games. So I think both those fan bases are looking at their respective head coaches and saying, man, it's time to deliver a national championship to this program. We've been right here on the precipice. Both these programs have been in the past 2 national championship games, both of them losing to one of the Dakota States. And so the expectation now is to go win one of these games. But then I think the team that everyone's kind of overlooking is Charlton. I would make them the favorite coming out of that left side of the bracket where you have Illinois State, UC Davis, Villanova, and Tarleton. I think Tarleton might be the favorite, man. That offense is so difficult to prepare for. That slow mesh, RPO, choice route, like it's just in a week span where you don't really know who you're getting the next week. And if you're not in their conference, you don't see it in a ton. Like no Missouri Valley team runs that type of slow mesh RPO scheme. It gives Missouri Valley teams fits. It gave North Dakota fits last week. And I think they're getting, healthy at the right time. And that defense, man, is so athletic, so fast. And I'm not one of these people that argue because there's some people in the FCS that believe like the physicality is up in these North teams and the Southern speed thing. But Tarleton, man, is fast, and they were faster, more physical, and bigger than North Dakota last week, and they took away the run game. I think Tarleton has a way better chance to win this national championship than a lot of people are giving them credit for just because of the scheme they run and how hard it is to prepare for.
Yeah, I love when you say things like that because it makes you feel smart. That was as you might remember a couple of weeks ago, that was like the one I circled was Tarleton. I feel like they are going to make a deep run this year. It is. Well, once again, obviously it's wide open, thanks to what we opened with. Is there any team in this that you think ends up getting if you're there, if you made it this far, you clearly deserve to be there. I mean, there's no such thing as a team. That's the good thing about the FCS process is that all the teams that are there deserve to be there. But is there a team that you think is right to be upset?
I don't think so. Yeah, I would have a hard time picking one. I think, listen, you got to earn your spot. At the end of the day, you got to beat who you beat. And even the teams that maybe people felt like got too high of a seed or got an easy draw, like you still had to go play these teams. Like you look at all the teams that are there. UC Davis had to get past a really, really good Rhode Island team with a really good defense. I mean, you can't really argue Illinois State don't belong there. They beat 2 seeded teams, including the number 1 team in the country in North Dakota State on the road. Both games were on the road, by the way. So they deserve it. Tarleton just beat a North Dakota team that was really good and blew out Tennessee Tech the week before. Villanova's beat Harvard and Lehigh. Both teams were really highly regarded, and they had to go on the road and beat a Lehigh team that ain't lost this year. They were 12-0 going into that game. Montana State went through some battles. They played Yale really, really close last week. Montana put up 50 on South Dakota State. What a performance by them. And Stephen F. Austin had to beat a really, really good Abilene Christian team, a team that they lost to in week 2. So they had to go get revenge in that game. And then South Dakota just went down to Mercer and put up 47 on them and held the Jerry Rice Award winner to no points. All these teams belong at the spot we have them.
I agree with the aspect of what you just said. I also wanted to say this earlier. It's like, as a person, like, see, like, this thing is like, I feel like it differentiates with people, but it's like, if you grew up in like the Northwest, FCS means something, right? It's like one of the few places where you're like actually looking at those games. You're looking at Eastern Washington. I'm from Eastern Washington. I'm not from the Western side, even though I live in Seattle now. But it's like during that time frame, like you'd pay attention to what Montana's doing. You're paying attention to what Eastern's doing. You're paying attention to what all these other schools are doing. And one of the most interesting things, like of what it was like Montana State a little bit struggled with Yale, which I think is like kind of interesting. It just took them a little bit of a while to get going. But I agree with exactly what you said, where it's like Montana State and Montana playing each other in that same bracket, like that's a dream. That's a dream because like they hate each other. They really do. Like they don't get to show it enough, but they hate each other. And like that's the thing is like the Northwest, and like this way I always describe is like the FCS so much of the West, like the Western side of football that doesn't get paid as much attention to is like all these powerhouses that have all these names. But it's like I agree with what you're saying, where it's like everybody right now belongs where they're at. Everybody's had their shot to like put something in. It is really surprising considering like recent dominance. Not to the same extent because it's not like that surprising considering the team that they have this year, but just in terms of like recent dominance in a total is like North Dakota State ain't doing that much compared to like what they've done like years past. But it's like at the same time, man, like these are the teams. Like this is the teams that you want. There's interest in like both the Montana schools. They started like, in my opinion, versus a lot of other people, like I know they started like overdeveloped. They started get become a lot better than what they were previously. And it's like seeing them now, it's like interesting. I think like there's so much talent in the FCS that doesn't get talked about. But like I agree 100% wholeheartedly. Like I agree with you in terms of like I want to see that Montana matchup. I want to see them actually play each other. I want to see like interesting stuff with this playoff because like everything I've seen, like obviously South Dakota just like destroyed Mercer, like that kind of stuff, like expected. But it's like everybody who's here right now, like this is what I expected. But it's like the more of where I'm at right now is like where are you gonna go next? Like what's the next matchups? Where are you gonna go next? Because like the first matchup, everything kind of lined up towards like, and now granted, there's still stuff to go on, but it's like I agree with like most of what's happened. It just matter what happens from here on out. Bill, you on mute?
Yes, good point. So two things. You said some things that I really thought were interesting, and I'm going to, of course, as always, just pass it off to Zach in a second. Every team that's in it could win it, right? That's the first thing that's fun.
Yeah.
Like every single team that's in it could win it this year. Two, and this goes back to something that Zach and I discussed, I think, about 2 years ago. There were all these gloom and doom predictions about what NIL was going to do to FCS. And maybe it's just me. I feel like the depth of talent and the talent level is as good or maybe better than it had been 5 or 10 years ago. There are a bunch of dudes playing in these playoff games that are going to play in the NFL. And while there have been guys who've moved up, obviously, you know, we got to see the Cam Scadabo story and lots of other cool stories of guys that moved, Jared Verse and a long list of others that moved up and killed it, right? When they moved up. Like they didn't just move up and, you know, earn a scholarship. You know, Cody Schrader set records, right? I mean, because he set records before. He set all these records at Truman, and then he gets to Missouri, sets records at Missouri. So hopefully, and I was one of those people that always been fighting the whole level of competition battle. Like you don't realize how good these people are. Well, now the membrane is so thin between the two that guys pass back and forth between them all the time. And I talk to these guys, and every single one of them says, with very few exceptions, okay, you know, maybe some of the offensive and defensive linemen say, yeah, I noticed, you know, these differences, you know, between these guys and these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But wide receivers, corners, quarterbacks, running backs seemingly say almost exactly the same thing. The guys I played against at school X could have played in the ACC, could have played in the SEC, could have played in the whatever. But I'm going to pass it off to Zach. So to that, Zach, in this new transfer portal NIL era, do you think FCS will continue to thrive? Because I'm loving FCS this year. And do you think that the proposed tweaks to both the portal situation and NIL, if they happen, and some of them already have been implemented, will help or hurt?
Yeah, I mean, I think the FCS is going to be fine. Like, obviously, you might lose a handful of more players just because there's money being thrown around, man. Anytime you put a bunch of money in front of a 18 or 19-year-old's face, like, obviously, it's going to be a conversation. And some of these guys do deserve that opportunity to go show it at the next level. And then obviously, you always have the Ivy League that doesn't allow red shirts, so they have to transfer up for their final year, like a Jaden Craig or someone like that coming out of Harvard. I think the new transfer portal rule in terms of the one-time transfer portal window really helps the FCS because now teams can't recruit all those P4 guys out of the portal. They not be good, and then they're going to circle back around and then call. Like, you look at South Dakota, they kept their whole team together. Then they lost 4 starting offensive linemen, their number 1 wide receiver, and their number 1 linebacker, and I think their number 2 wide receiver, all in the spring window because teams started tampering because they needed those positions. So it only gives you a handful of days to hit the portal, and now you're locked in. And so now these teams can go through spring with confidence, developing these guys, not wondering if they're going to lose them once spring practice ends. So I think it's really, really good for the FCS. And I do think a shorter portal window, especially only one, really forces to guys who might be uncertain or might be hitting the portal for the wrong reason to make that decision to stay rather than making a bad decision to hit the portal. And I really, really hope that more guys make more informed decisions because there's a ton of data that suggests jumping up to the FBS level is not a good move unless you are the elite of the elite, unless you're a Jared Verse, unless you're a Cam Ward, a Cam Scattaboo. It's not a good idea. So I'm hoping more guys take the time to research, but then also too, it helps guys. The one negative is the guys who do jump up, now they don't have an opportunity to come back down in the spring window if they don't win a starting job, right? The ones that get lied to, the ones who were promised a starting role and don't get it. You look at AJ Pena at Rhode Island, he went to Memphis, it went working out in the spring, he transfers back to Rhode Island, and now he's an FCS All-American. In this setup, now he'd be stuck in Memphis as a backup, and that would be unfortunate, but he made the decision to take that risk, and that's the outcome of it.
Well, and I think some like a huge aspect of it is like the aspect of like you take 1 year versus like taking 2 years. Like it's okay. It's different to say like after 1 year I'm going past FCS, like I'm past this, I'm gonna go forward. You're gonna do something. But it's like once you get into like that second year, that's where I prefer guys to like take that shot to like I'm going up. Because like I think a lot of guys when they come into the FCS, like first year they go right away and they get buried on a depth chart that they shouldn't be buried on. And especially just because of opportunity, like, hey, we give this guy more NIL money, maybe something else like that comes up. And it's like when you're looking at that, it's like I'd much rather see them like take that second year in the FCS and then like then start to look at the transfer portal if they need it.
Yeah. Before we transition,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask Zach a couple more questions real quick. So you mentioned, obviously, Jaden Craig. Who else do you think is going to be an impact portal person from FCS? There's a handful of others who are making moves who I think will be, make a splash or whatever term you want to use. You don't have to give us like a long list, but who are some of your favorites or ones that you want to hit on?
I don't even remember who hit the board. I'll be honest. I'm so locked into the playoffs right now that I haven't even really been paying attention. If people leave, they leave. Nico Brown from Yale is one I think is going to be really good. Man, he had a just insane year at Yale this year. I think Teron Dickens coming out of Western Carolina. I think he might be one of the best quarterbacks in the portal. He's going to be a freak if he gets into the right system. And I just think it's going to come down to him making the right decision on where he goes. I think Jesse Powell from Elon, man, he's like a 6'4" safety, Can't teach that type of size. He has the athleticism. You mentioned Jaden Craig, also Ezekiel Larry from Yale, edge rusher, was a freak this year. Had 10 sacks for Yale. Really, really good coming off the edge. Also too, I guess a freshman would be Lamont Lester from Monmouth. Freshman All-American, was the highest graded edge rusher in the FCS this year. I think he's going to make a team really, really happy if they can keep him for the next 3 years. And he gets into a P4 strength and conditioning program with the weight management that they have there. I think he's going to be a problem. Probably Derek Osman too, coming out of Harvard. A lot of these guys are Ivy League.
Yep.
So, and then also Sawyer Seidel coming out of North Dakota at running back. I think he's going to be really, really good as well. So those are just a few of the names of guys looking here that have already entered from the FCS. But yeah, I think those would be some of the top guys to know.
Yeah, I agree on every single one of them. And Seidel particularly is like one of those, well, once again, player I've kind of circled. If he goes, I'm not saying he's Brashard Smith. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's Brashard Smith. But if he goes to a situation where he's used the way Brashard Smith was used,
yeah,
he could have a similar kind of impact and role.
Yeah, Tyron Chappell too from Houston Christian, 6'3" corner as a freshman, man. Had like 4 or 5 picks this year. Kid's a freak. I mean, I don't know how he ended up at Houston Christian.
That is a program.
They got so much individual talent down
right.
there.
And I don't want to say they came out of nowhere, but like Houston Christian, did they reclassify? Is that what happened to them? I'm trying to remember, because it feels like Houston Christian, I was aware of Houston Christian, but they weren't doing what they're doing, right?
No.
And then a couple of years ago, boom! It's like, and now a year doesn't pass where there's not at least 1 or 2 guys from Houston Christian. I go, wow.
Remember they started their program in like 2014, so it's still like a new program. But man, dude, like Caleb Johnson came out of there, Bailey Zappi, Jalix Hunt came out of there recently.
Yes.
Is a stud for the Eagles. I mean, man, they got, and then you look at all the guys that have transferred up. Man, they got some guys on that roster, man. I don't know how, and it's weird, right? They have all this individual talent, but can't win. And
that's
it's so
weird
odd.
Thing, right? Yes, that is the weird thing. It's like you think you can get to 8 wins. You think
with all this individual talent, and then those guys move on to go be monsters at the FBS level or another program, and it's like, okay, well, what's missing at Houston Christian?
Right. But they seem to know how to identify the talent. I'll give them credit for that. But they seem
if anyone gets fired from Houston Christian, I'm going to go ahead and hire them to come be like my GM or talent of recruiting coordinator or something. Bring the talent here.
Director of recruitment,
So many of like what I feel like this transfer portal is, and granted, like this a lot, what you can see with the FCS is like, it's like a lot of like undersized more guys like that, but they're still like ballers, right? Like they still like make huge moments, like. Even Cam Jones out of like Holy Cross, like 5'11", like he can make an impact. Like some of these guys can make an impact. It's not going to be like, because that's the thing is like I think some people like they hear FCS names and they want to like hope that somebody's going to be like crazy. They're going to hope that like they get the Cooper Cup level player, and it's like that's not the case. But like if you get a guy who's going to like make your program go from this to like all of a sudden this guy who's an undrafted free agent moves up to the 6th round, that's still a huge win for your program. You know what I mean? And it's like that's something I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be fascinated to see, like I said, and there'll be some guys, of course, who will come down, right? Or and we've seen, lots of guys have success that direction as well. It's not discussed as often, though it probably should be discussed more when guys, go from being parked, behind, a variety. But I mean, obviously, you can go way back to Joe Flacco, right? Who couldn't beat out Tyler Palco, but goes to Delaware and makes a name for himself, and he's still collecting NFL game checks. Shout out to Joseph Flacco all these many years later. I mean,
what one that always sticks out to me, and he's a senior right now, so like you have to get the extra year. But it's like the whole thing. John Lista. John Lista intrigues me. Like you watch him, and granted, like it's nothing that's gonna like shout out to you in terms of like draft potential and everything. He's more of a college player to me, at least, than he is an NFL player. But it's like in terms of impacts he's gonna make in college, like he's gonna do that kind of stuff. Like he was just impactful. He was around the ball. He was around different areas that like existed around that area. And like he was making plays like in sacks and coverage and all this stuff. And granted, it's gonna change once you get to like real like players and his actual like he real players he's playing against. But it's like at the same time, like when you're watching him, it's like, man, that'll be interesting for a college program. It won't be interesting for like an NFL scout viewpoint, but it'll be interesting from a college program.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% in full agreement with you. And one last sort of prospect that I think might make a big impact if he lands in the right place. Ajay Dobbs, and I think, I mean, he played well against Auburn, right?
Yeah.
And now, leaving Mercer, he could land at Auburn. Auburn can use. I mean, I'm not even joking. Like Auburn could use.
Real, though,
Auburn could
real.
use, frankly, a lot of people. And so, if I'm watching the game tape, I'm looking at the, what I've got on the cupboards at Auburn. Yeah, it's like, okay, hey, we might be able to pry loose a player or two from Mercer. Mercer's another program that used to be just a nowheresville program, for lack of a way to put it. They were fodder, basically, right? I mean, they would win 4 to 6 games, get hot some years and get up to 7 or 8, but usually they were hung around 500, game or below, game behind, below, above. And now, right, they're putting dudes into FBS. They're going to have some guys in the NFL. That's another shout out to the administration there, taking football more seriously, obviously, and putting more time, more money, more resources and hiring the right people. Because that's a program that, I mean, I never remember discussing Mercer football in like the, early to mid 2000s. I'll put it that way. I remember, they would get they would get slapped around by Citadel back in the day. Like things have changed.
Well, yeah, because they weren't a pro. They didn't come back. Remember, they ended the program in like the 40s, and they came back in like 2013, I think. It was a Pioneer League program.
Right. And not a pretty good one.
Yeah. So but you look at their past 2 or 3 hires, man. Like Drew Cronick is now at the FBS level. Mike Jacobs is now going to Toledo. They go and hire the West Georgia head coach, Joel Taylor, who's been a hot name in the coaching circles, and he was a defensive coordinator at Mercer. So, like, look at the coaching tree that they've been building there, man. It just shows that it matters who you hire, and hiring championship level coaches matters.
Yep, yeah, that's maybe the most important thing to do is to make that right hire.
Oh, wow. Breaking news. Hampton is expected to hire Von Malone from Kansas State as the next head coach.
Huh.
Oh,
that's an interesting
I'll be honest,
hire.
that was not one of the names that was on my radar.
Yeah.
Well, they were targeting Quinn Gray, and so when Quinn went with Pham, I think they had to pivot. And Vaughn applied for FAMU last year too. Like I think he's been looking for a head coaching job, or because he's been at Kansas State for a while now.
Well, first of all, shout out to them just having an open mind, right? Not getting stuck, I guess, on, hey, sometimes it doesn't happen, you move on. I think, we'll do a whole other show about, I guess, some of the teams that have moved around, but obviously, a MEAC stalwart for many, many years, they have wandered around, some of these teams that used to be in the MEAC or used to be in the SWAC have found success, right? It's not like all of them have struggled, but a few of them have. And it's not just they're in a different situation. They're not, I don't think it's a big talent gap situation. I think it's more like, first of all, there's no natural rivalries, right? When you move, when you change conferences and you change dramatically the type of programs you face week in and week out. When you're in the MEAC, you already have like a natural built-in enmity. You have a natural built-in like sense of resentment towards most of the other programs. you have friends, cousins, and whatever you're going to face, right? People you went to high school with, you're going to face. If you go to Delaware State, when you play Howard, you're going to face people that you grew up with, or played with or played against in high school and whatever. But all of a sudden, if you change to the OVC, or you change to the Southland or the Big South, or who am I forgetting? It's see, I think all the SWAC and MEAC schools either end up in the Big South, the Southland, or the OVC, right?
Yeah, yeah. You got Tennessee State in the OVC Big South now, and then you got Hampton and A&T in the CAA.
CAA, that's right. CAA. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to. And the CAA is tough. For those that I know it, we always talk about the Big Sky and of course the Missouri Valley Conference as the top, which they are. I mean, we talk about them because that's true. But the one that I got to see the most in person was CAA football. I still get to see at least one or two William Mary games. I grew up in the Tidewater area. I remember watching Mike Tomlin and Sean McDermott in their days, wearing the gold and the green, and Jimmy Lake, the legendary Jimmy Laycock was there. And of course, obviously, William Mary is still a competitive program.
Yeah.
The SoCon is kind of taking a step back. At one point, the CAA has maybe benefited from the SoCon's slide. Maybe, I don't know. No, they have not.
The CAA is terrible now. I mean, because you also got to think William and Mary and Villanova are leaving now.
Leaving, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so who's going to be the best team in that conference? Rhode Island, who historically has not been very good till recently. I think the conference that's benefited the most is the UAC, actually. Like, you look at the UAC, they got some killers in that conference. Abilene Christian, Tarleton, Central Arkansas, Austin P, West Georgia's a rising program. Southern Utah has been right on the cusp. I think the UAC might be the conference you kind of pinpoint as the one that could really, really be like the number 3 conference right now behind the Valley and the Big Sky.
Good
That's
point.
fair.
I forget that the UAC exists.
A lot of people do. It's fair. It's a good point.
And in my mind, I keep putting Southern Utah back in the Big Sky. And I apologize. I shouldn't do that.
It's so weird in my mind because, like, I think of them all as independent, weirdly enough. Like, they're all just, like, themselves. They're just out here vibing. They're out here doing stuff. And then I think about them, like, wait, there's a whole conference going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I completely agree. Like, that's the conference right there compared to the other two. But like Big Sky just keeps dominating, man. It's like they need somebody to just knock the Big Sky off.
Well, the Missouri Valley is probably that
Exactly.
Yeah, the Valley's one for sure.
The Valley is tough.
I think part of it too is like the Northwest has like a slight advantage with like the Big Sky and stuff like that, because mainly like most of the Northwest talent, like if they're not good enough to make it to UW, now the Pac-12 doesn't exist, so it's like you're not just gonna go all these other places. Like if you're a NUSO, you might go to like California or Oregon, you might go into those places, but like for the most part, there's like a good portion of people that's like you're gonna end up in the Big Sky. Like I know so many people who have like been good in high school who've had to commit to like Montana or Montana State, where it's like they'd have a chance somewhere else, but it's like there's no recognition up here where like the other Northwest school states are. Like if you notice them somewhere else, you might think differently, but it's just not like gonna be here.
I think the other thing that helps beyond the sort of sense of isolation that the Northwest still
We are in isolated.
right, so somewhat in I don't know if it enjoys, but has established, whatever term you want to use, is they also are willing to incubate players, for lack of a way of putting it, right? Because of I call it microwave football culture that is I love the South, right? I grew up in the South.
Hmm.
It is, food, family, football, faith, right? Whatever order you want to put that in, like that, I get it. That's what the South's all about. But I mean, there's people getting in fist fights, as third graders are playing football, as, you know what I mean? And people talking about as kids who are literally 8 years old about like which feeder elementary school to get them or what park district to get them to the right middle school feeder school to the right high school and you don't have that foolishness in Renton, Washington. You don't have that foolishness. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
it's you still have free range, what I call free range football.
Right. What's so crazy to me is like I say this as like a person like living in Seattle. It's like somebody actually just told me the other day, like straight up, like I follow sports. I follow like most every sport I can. The biggest thing somebody told me the other day is like you realize you have like 3 of the top 20 recruits in the nation in Seattle right now, and like you're not watching their high school games of basketball. And I'm like, what? Like I literally just figured out that the number 1 recruit in high school in baseball and basketball was in Seattle. I was like, that's crazy. Like that's how the Northwest works though. It's like they're not like as focused in that. Like their high school development isn't nearly as important. Like the South, everyone's paying attention to recruitment ratings, all that stuff. Like the Northwest, like nobody even knows what anyone's doing until they actually make it somewhere.
Yeah, free range, right? Players can
Yeah.
still free range. They, someone can slowly develop
Yeah, exactly.
without every single moment of their lives being, picked apart and examined from the time they're literally. You mentioned that you were 12 when Illinois State made their first run deep into the playoffs. If you're like a big time 12-year-old in, which sounds crazy to say, big time 12-year-old in South Florida, right? There's already, you know,
Well,
there's already like
but
websites talking to you, like, "Hey, you're the top 7th grader in blah blah blah."
and
Yeah.
even like outside that, like let me throw this out there. Like that's the coolest thing about the FCS, right? Is like when you're like a young kid growing up in those towns and you see somebody who's even eligible to get drafted, they look like they're the greatest star on the planet. Like I remember as a kid, like this what got me into the FCS was like watching Eastern Washington with Taiwan Jones. Like I was a
Mhm.
Spokane kid. Taiwan Jones, who just became a special teamer in the league. He didn't really do anything else once he actually entered. But like I remember Taiwan Jones as a running back at Eastern Washington, I was like, nobody can stop this man. This is the greatest player I've ever seen in my life. Like as a kid, because like you don't know better. You're just sitting there and you're like, this is just blowing my mind, And like that's the coolest thing about the FCS is like I always say like when you're watching FCS football, when you see somebody who's like really that talented, it just sticks out like a sore thumb compared to everything else. It's just like, wow, that guy's just different. That guy's just different.
Yeah, well, Taiwan Jones ran, so I mean walked, so
Yeah.
that Brashard Smith, he's been name checked twice, could run. Very similar types of players, but one of them a little more powerfully built and in
Well,
a better situation. But
and I hate I was out of Spokane during the moments of like Cooper Cup rising up, right? Like I like knew about it obviously because like I lived in that side of the state, but it's like
right.
I wasn't like living through it. Like Taiwan Jones, I was literally like a kid going to like the stadium. I'm like, wow, Taiwan Jones, one of the greatest players ever. I couldn't imagine being a kid in that era with like Cooper Cup watching him. It's like, wow, like that's the greatest receiver of all time.
Well, I mean,
There's an
not
argument.
there's an argument to be made. I mean,
It's an argument.
I've been watching
No, I
college
mean,
football
like,
a long time, and I haven't
yeah.
seen many better college. And I got to watch, Jerry Lee Rice, and they used to have in the old days the BET Sports Game of the Week. I remember the first time I watched him, I think it was his sophomore year, and he was skinny as a rail, right at the time. He's maybe, same height, but probably 170, maybe. And oh my gosh, even then his routes were right. I mean, like razor sharp. And he and Willie Totten were just beginning. Willie Taunton was a year behind him. So his freshman year, I don't remember who the quarterback was. They didn't do a whole lot, though. The offense was being structured by halfway through sophomore year. Archie the Gunslinger Cooley knew what he had, and he was like, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do: run plays, dead." And so
Cooper Cup is the definition of like look means something when you get drafted. Like his look is as terrible as you can make a look. Like, but like at the same time, when you would watch him play, you're like, wow. Like if you put a helmet on that head, you have no clue what's going on. Like that kid is crazy.
yeah, one of the best blocking wide receivers of
Yeah.
whenever. Once again, a route technician with amazing hands. I mean, complete. The term we use is complete, a complete wide receiver. Before we go down memory lane,
Yes, absolutely.
too far, because I was about to walk you through like the moment I fell in love with Jerry Rice. So maybe that's not the best use of our time. But
because like I'm a bit
Eastern Washington's draft history like that.
I was about to say I remember I like made everyone mad because I was saying if we're really just judging based off a strictly collegiate career, Cooper Kupp is the greatest FCS player of all time. Like wide receiver for sure. Yeah, like, and I think he's better than Jerry Rice for just comparing college careers.
You know what's funny is like I'm working for the Pac-12 network at this time. I'm actually angry that I'm not.
He was a terror
like,
for the Pac-12.
I'm angry that I'm not a kid watching FCS as I'm working for a big network. I'm like, man, I would kill for that. I would kill to watch that. Like I couldn't even imagine like watching that as a little kid. Like you'd be thinking you were watching like Jerry Rice.
Well, I mean, once again, it's closer than you think. I mean, as someone who actually watched Jerry Rice until Cooper Kupp, I said it wasn't even close. Like the best receiver I'd ever seen in my life is Jerry Lee Rice, and Cooper Kupp in college. I mean, once again, just like with Jerry, every team knew they had to stop Cooper Kupp, and none of them could. Right? Every single team had that was they began and ended every defensive meeting with we have to keep a lid on. We have to watch out for. We have to. I promise you that they didn't. They had pictures of him all over their everywhere, right? Because that's if you stop him, you've stopped Eastern Washington. Like that's not much of an exaggeration, but they couldn't do it. Yeah, he was ridiculous and sick. Getting back to the discussion of the thing. Okay, so do you have a favorite playoff matchup? I know that Jordan's already said his. What's yours coming up, Zach?
This weekend, I think it was probably Montana, South Dakota. That's obviously the biggest game of the weekend in this round. I think when you look at offensively all the talent that Montana has, speaking of receivers, I mean, they got 4 guys that can go make plays, but in particular, Michael Wortham might be the most versatile player I've watched in all of college football in my life, maybe. I mean, this kid can do literally everything. I mean, he used to play quarterback at Eastern Washington and now is the number 1 receiver in the Big Sky, which is just unbelievable to see his progression. And then Brooks Davis is a freshman All-American for them. IGOT's development's been outstanding. But then for South Dakota, man, they're just one of the prototypical example of getting hot at the right time. Aiden Bauman came into the year as a top draft pick coming out of the FCS. Didn't play well early, but man, he's found his rhythm and he's playing really good football. LJ Phillips, Lorenzo Finner. I mean, and they got some young DBs that are really playing well. Mikey Munn and those guys are forcing turnovers at a high rate. So I think that game in Missoula is probably the one I look at as the most intriguing.
Yeah, I'm inclined. I guess just to diversify our bonds, I'm gonna throw out that those are all like correct. Or I think I'm going to keep riding with my ISU Redbirds, I guess. I mean, I would be watching them, I guess, to some of it anyway. A lot of the kids that I saw play high school ball around here have ended up at ISU. It's it's a fun story for a bunch of different reasons, and as you point out, Brock Spack is one of those football lifers, right? He was a guy that I didn't even know he'd ever be a head coach. He was like, it's crazy how long he's been as a head coach. He was a coordinator for a long time too. He's one of those guys who's had 2 long careers in college football already.
Mhm.
Got started young, and quickly moved up to the coordinator level and then stuck there for quite some time. And then when he finally did decide to move up to being a head coach, obviously, I think that, clearly it's worked out. And then shout out to Big Bone Did, one of our frequent guests, who is a UC Davis guy. UC Davis, of course, has a really good quarterback tradition. Obviously, the one that most people think of, a first-round draft pick of the Jets. The Jets, of course, have had checkered first-round draft pick history. But when I remember, literally, I've been into the draft for a long time. People saying, "Who?" Right when he got drafted, who is this guy? When Ken O'Brien got drafted, there were people. I mean, I'm not talking about like just casual fans. I'm talking about sports writers. I was there who didn't seem to know who the heck he was. Now, admittedly, this is back before, information was as free flowing as it is now. But and then speaking of, not as famous as Ken O'Brien for football or for playing football, but Chris Peterson, who was a pretty darn good quarterback in his day, also at UC Davis. I think that UC Davis has every opportunity to win this game, obviously. And Illinois State is very capable of playing. There's a lot of variance in how Illinois State shows up to play. So this could either be, a not very compelling game, or it could be the best game of them all, depending on which version of the Redbird shows up. But I think that we're going to see a less weird version of a more, like a regular football team version of Illinois State. It's gonna be. I think it'll be a fascinating game. I think that of the 2 things that will determine this outcome, obviously, I would normally say turnovers, but apparently Illinois State's turnover agnostic. I guess turnovers don't really matter to them. But I'm going to say that being able to establish your offensive thing, right? Whether it be short passing, running, the deep shot, whatever it is, getting that thing established, that your thing works. 2, can you take away the other team's thing, right? Whatever their thing is they're best at. And then last but not least, we don't talk about special teams nearly enough. We don't.
Okay.
As a nation, we don't talk about special teams nearly enough. There's going to be at least one big special teams play made in that game. And as you pointed out in the last game, right, that Illinois State played, a huge special team play, I think, was one of the turning points in that game. So if Illinois State can continue to pull those big plays out of special teams, I think they come out with a win. I don't think they can continue to. My father used to say that if you dance in the rain long enough, you get wet. I don't think they can continue to dance around and dodge raindrops. They will. I know we keep saying this, but they'll have to play better this week. But this time, I think they will. I think they will play a more evenly. And I'm just going to ride with Illinois State. Maybe they're a team of destiny. And then I still think that my pick to click, as they used to say, to make it at least to, if not to the finals, then at least to the semis, is maybe I like Tarleton. I still like Tarleton. I think if there's a team that isn't one of the, they're kind of a big program, but not one of the immediately you think of them programs to win it all. I think Tarleton has a chance to get there and maybe to win it all, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm with you on the I'm with you on the Tarleton pick, man. I'm bullish on them right now. But listen, man, there's always the big question mark. Can they get past one of those top 2 teams on the other side of the bracket? If it is Montana, if it is Montana State, I do think that those teams are going to offer a real big challenge. And even though it's impressive they got past North Dakota, man, those 2 teams over there are a different type of animal.
I agree with you. One thing I want to say on the FCS too, versus when you're playing in the bigger leagues and stuff like that. Honestly, a question mark's almost good about you. It's if you're a question mark, if you're one of those teams that could just surprise people, pop people, do something different that they're not expecting, Like that's the way you want to be. Like you just want to be different. They're so high octane. It's like they're a question mark. It's like it's a matter of like which one shows up. But if it's like high octane, if it's what they can do, they could be really interesting. And like that's the biggest thing to me is like to me it's like you look at like to me like the FCS has always been about upside. It's like if your upside hits right at the right time, if you're streaky, it's almost like a baseball team where it's like if you're streaky for that amount of time, like nobody could stop you in that amount of time. But it's just a matter of like, can you get there? I know it's big nothing burger talking, but
um, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Zach, but if you want to stick around for Army Navy, you can, but you don't have to. I am required by law and by the fact that I'm a former military officer to mention Army Navy and, of course, to say go Army beat Navy. But let me know, is there something else you want to leave us with if you are leaving? And before you go, make sure you tell people where they can find your amazing work and follow you.
And again, Bill, you already know this, man. Y'all do a great job, man. I appreciate all the invites, man. I'm hoping to get to catch up with you at the Shrine or Senior Bowl this year.
Yes.
Looking forward to maybe I'm going to try to find a way to go to both, man. I wish they would just swallow their pride and put them on different weeks, man. Stop
Yes,
making
please go
in
back
the
to that.
possible spot.
I used to
Especially-
love going to the Shrine for like 3 days and then just boom over
and then
to
flipping back over to Mobile. Like it's a perfect because the FCS guys are so spread out, and then I also got to go to the Legacy Bowl in New Orleans. I'm hoping to see you there too. That's one of my favorite events every year. I can't wait.
It's
There's
a
going to be some
fantastic
studs,
event.
and Jeremiah
scheduling
Williams
just-
and all them.
If I were
Yes.
people talk about like if they were the football czar, if I were the football czar, I would make at least one of them, happen like in like 2 weeks, right? And then the others, and then another one like a week, then another week. That way players can get the call up, right? Which used to be one of the coolest
Exactly.
things. Was when a guy would. I remember one time I actually had a hand in somebody getting the call up.
that's crazy.
Yeah, a guy from McNeese State named Deontay. Was it Lee? What was Deontay's last name? I think it was. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name. But he ended up in the CFL for a while. But he also played for the Chargers. Deontay. What was Deontay's last name? But I was all over this guy. It'll come back to me. Small little slot receiver type, 5'8" 3/4", 174 pounds with a flat out fly. 4.3 something speed.
Yeah.
And he was at the NFLPA game, and somebody pulled out from the Senior Bowl due to injury. This is back when Tony Softly was still running the NFLPA. And he said, to me, like, who do you like? And I was like, I love Deontay. It's like, yeah. Who do you know at such and such? I knew some people who knew some people at the Senior Bowl. And so when they had a couple of guys, would check out with the day 2 injuries that happened at the Senior Bowl.
That's cool.
It opened up a spot for him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let me see if I can make this happen." So I set up a call between us, like, "Hey, Tony Softly's doing such and such. He's got this kid who I think is amazing, fantastic." We were able to make that happen. So every once in a while, back in the Medal of Honor, for those who are old enough to remember the old Medal of Honor. So every once in a while, I would get somebody from there to the Shrine or whatever. But I love that they've made some of these things more professional-ish in the way they carry out things. Like it used to be kind of like you could tell in the old days when you went to some of these things that these were part-timers, right? This wasn't anybody's full-time job. Now, some of these positions are full-time positions with some of these bowl games. There's now a little more polish and professionalism, things like that. But with that, I think came also some being less flexible, about certain things that you
Pride.
help. Yes, right. As you said, pride.
We're the biggest bowl game.
Yes, right. We want to show we're the bully on the block, right? And it used to be a little more collegial, especially back when it wasn't somebody's main gig, right? Maybe because you only devoted 3 months of your life to this, maybe you weren't quite so territorial about it back in the old days. But things change. So once again, you're always welcome to talk Army Navy. But if you do need to go, tell people all the stuff you're working on, where they can find it, and how to follow you, sir.
Yeah, man. FCS Football Central on si.com/college/FCS. The Blue Bloods on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms. Also with Sam Herder and Craig Haley on their FCS
Yes.
shows, the FCS Edge and
I
FCS
get-
Football Talk. So literally everywhere you find FCS football, you'll find me. So Bill, again, I really, really appreciate you. Jordan, it was also nice to meet you, my man, and looking forward to catching up with y'all during the NFL draft circuit.
Yes, sir. And we
Yes,
will
sir.
definitely
Senior
bring
Bowl
you
coming
back.
up.
We'll bring you back to talk about FCS prospects sometime between now and the draft.
Oh, I can't wait. You know, that's my favorite time of year, Bill. We're
Yes,
going to get some of
sir.
these guys
Sir,
drafted.
That's the best
Appreciate
time.
y'all, man.
Take care. That even if you're not an FCS person, well, one, if you like football, you're gonna love, especially if you're like old fashioned and you like people who play football for football reasons and not for like building
Yeah.
your brand reasons. You should definitely get into FCS football if you aren't into it yet.
No,
Okay,
like,
so
I always tell people it's like I was such a, and to this day, like I'm a little bit of a casual when it comes to FCS. Like I was showing on the show, but like my biggest thing with it is too is like it's so funny because when like I grew up, FCS is how I got into college football, right? Like everything like opened up through FCS. And I think like people who are like in these big programs that like never seen what an FCS school is, it's like so different. Like you see way more community, you see way more like different vibes where they're like actually out and talking with people versus like so much of like what you see in college football, just like a different atmosphere. I recommend it to anybody.
yes. And before I spend the last 5 or so minutes just bloviating about Army Navy, also the Crickets Celebration Bowl, South Carolina State, which seems to be almost in this thing. I think they've been in it 60% of the time that it's happened. Buddy Pugh was there for a long time and basically owned the Celebration Bowl for a while. The SWAC team would almost always come in higher ranked or whatever, and then South Carolina State would get them. Shout out also to Darius Leonard, who has now called it a career, I believe. But
yeah, just did recently. That's crazy.
One of the greatest. I mean, you have to go back to like Harry Carson to find a HBCU linebacker who I thought was as good as Darius Leonard. But South Carolina State's there again, and this is Prairie View A&M's, I think, first trip to the Celebration Bowl. So shout out to PVAMU getting there. And I think that, I mean, I guess just because I usually roll with South Carolina State in these things, I'm going to keep doing that. They tend to find a way. They're not as good on offense as, I would prefer they be, but they're always good on defense. They're always well coached, and I like their chances. Also, I guess bucked up LA is the LA Bowl is kicking it off pretty soon, and the IS4S Salute the Veterans Bowl is getting it kicked off pretty soon. But
there's a bowl for every fourth phrase word these days.
Yes, right. I'll probably save that, but it is now Army Navy time. And should Navy win this game? They probably should. They're the more talented team.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched both teams on tape. They're more impressive. But one, I'm completely biased. Two, I really think Army has something for them. Army has not been as consistent when their bad is much worse than Navy's bad. I will say that much. They do have a really good defense. They've played in a lot of close games, won some, lost some. It's going to be a snow game, not light snow, but in M&T Bank Stadium. The midshipmen are getting 5.5. So I don't know if Army wins it outright, though actually I do. I think Army wins it outright. Let me stop pretending that I don't believe that. But even if you're a betting person, I would lay I would take Army even if they don't win it outright. Navy really does have some fun players to watch. They are a fun team to watch, period. Navy does lead the series 63-55-7, and they won last year 31-13, which is particularly painful to realize. Army has run 766 offensive plays this year. 85.9% of them, I'm surprised not a higher percentage, have been run plays. Navy has run 695 plays, the third fewest in the nation, and just less, I think 77.79 or something percent of them have been run plays. But they do throw the ball surprisingly well. Last year, Army ran for 4,207 yards last season. I didn't stutter. That is correct. Last year, in a regular season, a regular length season, they ran for 4,207 yards as a team. That was more than 700 plus over every other team in the nation. Now, they did play 14 games, if you count Army, Navy, and the bowl game. And they had Bryson Daly and Kanye Udo, both of whom are gone. Udo went to he transferred, and of course Bryson Daly, who I think briefly was in an NFL camp, but is right now settling into his new permanent duty station as a platoon commander. But Cale Helms and Dwayne Coleman are effective enough, but not quite the same level of one tough running that you got from Daly, and not quite correct on the reads in terms of whether to give or take, hold on to it or pitch it. But I just feel like Helms is going to have the game of his life, knock on something, because if he doesn't, we will not win this game. He has 1,078 rushing yards on 264 carries, found the end zone 15 times, and Daly went for almost 1,700 yards, right? In 310 carries, 32 rushing touchdowns, which is why Daly, was a Heisman finalist and deserved to be. Udo himself chipped in another 1,000, over 1,100 actually yards, and another 10 rushing TDs. So we're not quite that. But Blake Horvath and Alex Tegsa gone, right? Which is good. I mean, good for me, because Blake Horvath was deadly. God, man. Texas was a 2,000-yard rusher in his 3 seasons. So at 5.5, sometimes I've seen places where the line is 6 or 6.5. And here's a name to remember: Drew Cronic. That's not quite like the album by Dr. Dre. It's close though. His name is actually Cronic. Drew Cronic. Modified the traditional triple option, and now it has different looks, right? And Horvath had the best completion percentage of any quarterback since Will Worth in 2016 at 61.5. And it made a big difference. We weren't prepared for their big plays in the passing game last year, and we got gashed a lot by the passes in the last game. I don't think it'll happen again this year. I don't have any really logical reason to, as I said, to pick Army other than, of course, my own bias. But I do feel like they're going to just manage to tamp down some of the things that happened last year. And we gave up big plays. I mean, we don't have the kind of offense where we can overcome giving up big plays. But Braxton Woodson, who is unusually tall for a Navy quarterback. I mean, usually Navy's quarterbacks are 6'1", 5'11", 6 feet, 5'10", sometimes even. This guy's a legit 6'2" and change, probably listed at 6'3", 215 pounds, and he's and he splits time with Eli Heidenreich. Heidenreich is more like the usual, right? Wide receiver, technically speaking, running back, B-back, whatever. It works a little differently, obviously, in the offense that they run, but he's going to occasionally get balls thrown to him, but he's also going to get balls handed to him. And, Blake Horvath, like I said, has been a little dinged up at various points this year, but he's the best passing quarterback they've had in a very, very long time at Navy. We have to not get gashed in the passing game, which sounds funny to say about an Army Navy game, but we have to not give up those big plays in the passing game, because we can, compete with them, obviously in terms of running the ball, right? We can do that. He's going to become a naval aviator. Shout out to future ensign Blake Horvath, who's going to be getting that tail hook set onto his aircraft at some point. Oh, okay, it's just been me sort of yapping. But do you have anything to contribute in terms of Army Navy before we close the show out, Jordan?
I don't have a ton on Army Navy. I think you crushed it on the nail. I believe your analysis more than anyone on this game in particular. I know that's your favorite. I
It
don't got a
means
lot to say
something.
on
It
it, but
means,
I'm
yeah, it means
intrigued.
a little something. Yeah.
I love watching it every year,
Yep.
but I can't say that I watch Army and Navy as empathetically as most people do.
Well, here's what I will say. It sounds weird to say that I'm worried about, like I said, big plays in the passing game. I feel like we can essentially neutral like, well, they're going to move the ball, like the nature of their offense, but we have to not give up those big plays, those chunk plays, right? And they'll get one or two longish runs, 12, 16, 17, 18. I'm fine with that. We can live with that. It's that 40, 50-yard bomb, that we cannot overcome. We don't pass the ball well enough to, like, we can match them if it's a running game. But if they hit us with 2 or 3 big bombs in the passing game, then that's it. We're going home. We're going home either way, but we're going home with an L. I feel like we're gonna.
What you just said right there is exactly why I watch that game in the first place. It's just like such like a contrary point of football, where it's like you're watching it at a different time and you're just like intrigued by what they're doing. It's like even less about like how they're doing it, why they're doing it, like something that's like, what are you doing? What is the general what of what Army versus Navy is? And like you find so much intriguing stuff that you hope like you finish that game and it's always the thing you're like, man, I hope my coordinator in either college or in professional, whichever one you're watching off of, it's like your hope, like maybe we could take one of those things, and you never will. Never will.
But yeah, it is one of my favorite games all year, and I'm glad it gets a chance. I mean, the cricket celebration bowl, whatever. But generally speaking, this is what I think of. As much as I love HBCU football, I think of this as Army Navy weekend, and as well, I think we should as a country. First of all, as we say every year, it's the only game where every player on that field would literally lay their life down for every other player on the field on both sides of the ball for both teams, right? That you don't see that every like people love to say, oh, I'm all in, blah blah blah. A little different. It's a little different for the Army Navy. But thank you once again, Jordan. And first of all, also thanks to Zach McKinnell. I cannot say this enough. There is nobody better. And when Zach is doing stuff with Craig Haley and Sam Herder, that's all the people who know FCS football inside out, all in one place. We have to make sure they're protected. Wherever they do that, they need to make sure that like security is high. We can't lose those things.
Absolutely.
Because that's it. Like that is truly the brain trust of covering FCS football. But Zach McKinnell, the Blue Bloods, his stuff he does for FCS on SI and Stats Inc. and everything is the best of the best of the best. Optima, all this stuff, the best of the best of the best. Jordan, thank you for joining us from Draft Nerds. I see you busted out the Z, so now it feels hip-hop-ish. Yeah. And then maybe I can convince you to do a little writing.
I want to do some writing. Okay. I'm not even going to lie to you. They're just like thousands. There's like this prospect class especially because like I'm a diehard linebackers guy. Like I want to admit that I'm not. Like every year, like I try to be like all these other positions, but in reality, I just haven't had a linebackers class that's made me this intrigued. And then like all of a sudden, you throw this linebacker class in my eyes, and it's like ever since I've seen it, I'm like, God, I want to write. Like, I want to tell everybody how good CJ Howard is. Man.
Well, guess what? I may still be looking for a co-host for Draft Central, so we'll talk. But we'll talk more. But once again, I'm Bill Carroll from Team MBS Media. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all again next week. We are OUTI.